Hi, guys. Welcome to the Grown Up Group. This is a podcast where we discuss topics that affect the Black community. Today, we're discussing something that affects every household, but doesn't affect every community in the same way. We know it's the economy. So, we hear the words inflation, interest rates, recession, housing markets, unemployment, and the cost of living all the time. We hear those words. They're like keywords, they're like buzzwords to us at this point. But what does all of this actually mean for Black families? And let me just delve into this because I know our community is affected a whole lot different than a lot of other communities. But we're used to, digging through and getting through the things that we need to survive because we all have been in survival mode for the last, I want to say, 400 years. So just let's go into this. Are Black Americans simply experiencing the same economic pressures as everyone else, or are there historical and structural factors that make the impact different? And that's a great question. And then perhaps the bigger question is, are we surviving the economy or are we actually building wealth in it? And I don't want to believe that it's really easy to build wealth, but let's delve into why this may be the question. Let's go into it. So let's delve into one of the top issues that we have with the economy is the cost of living. One of the most obvious effects is the rising costs of everyday life. So groceries, rent, utilities, insurance, transportation, childcare, and other necessities can consume a much larger portion of a household income. I can't even begin to tell you. I pay my mortgage and I'm trying to figure out what to do with the rest of it, the dollars that's left. And that usually goes towards food and whatever bill that may be sitting on the side that as at a lower rate. So let me just go tell you that from my honest perspective, that's what I deal with. So I know that everyone else is going to echo the same sentiment in the community. Are people actually earning more or are they simply paying more? So a salary increase doesn't necessarily mean someone is financially better off if housing, food, and insurance, as well as transportation, have increased faster than the disposable income. And this can be especially difficult for households if they don't have substantial savings or inherited wealth to fall back on. And I know that is the truth because it's very rare that we have inherited wealth or we fall back on anything. I'm trying to build that now for my family because I know my mother and father just doesn't have that for me. I'm going to have to pick up with whatever I have and just move forward. And I know that is a reality for me. I'd love to know if it's a reality for you too, because that's a harsh reality, but we don't inherit and we don't take on the wealth of our ancestors or our, lineage, our family. So let's talk about the wealth gap and the income gap, because that seems to be a huge unknown factor. So this is where the conversation gets a little bit deeper and delves into what those meanings are. Wealth gap and the income gap. So two people can earn the same salary but have a completely different financial life. One person may have a paid off home, retirement investments, family wealth, a business, little or no debt. So that could be one scenario. And then another person earning the same income may be having rent, carrying student loans, supporting family members, paying high interest debt, and then starting to a little accumulative wealth. So we know that typically that second person is to what we fall in line to, let's be honest. So the question there lies, how much money do we make? And then is it how much wealth do we have behind that income? So that distinction is extremely important when discussing Black community when it comes to historical differences in household ownership, access to credit, investment opportunities, and wealth accumulation can affect where families start financially. And let's just be honest, right? Because if we want to actually have wealth, a lot of that comes from the bank and financial institutions. And a lot of banking and financial institutions, if you don't go in with a line of credit, if you don't have a credit score, if you don't meet their guidelines of showing a surplus of income, you don't qualify for a lot of those loans. And unfortunately, loans just put you in further debt. That is what it is. That's just the truth. So when you ask the question, how much money do we make? Your yearly income is your yearly income. If you don't have anything growth or to stack on top of it, any side businesses or any type of investments or loans or anything like that, unfortunately, that number is just that number. When it comes to wealth, that's when you get into the investments, the credit line, the business structure, and any investment opportunities that you may have. which now I want to say that we're more conscious of that. We're now more knowledgeable of investments and stocks and, Bitcoin and opportunities that present themselves more financially. So hopefully we're getting and taking advantage of some of those opportunities and we're not turning a blind eye to it. But then there's a second thing that they came up with, which is home ownership. And home ownership, it does give you some form of wealth and comfortability. But let's delve into that because even that has its problems when it comes to financial restraints and everything. Let's go. So, home ownership remains one of the biggest pathways to building long-time wealth in America. But higher mortgage rates and high home prices made purchasing a home more difficult for many first-time home buyers. So, one of the questions that we have is the American dream of home ownership becoming less attainable for Black families? And my immediate response to that is yes. Solely because when we're met at the bank, as I stated earlier, if you don't have the means to actually provide them proof, then you're purchasing a home at a higher interest rate. And that higher interest rate means that you'll be paying your mortgage for a very long time, longer than probably 30 years. But think about that. If you don't have the means of income to actually purchase a home, meaning down payment, a low interest rate, then you're going to be paying your mortgage back at a high interest rate, and it's going to be for 30 years of your life. So that alone sounds very daunting. But let's go into further details. If Black families are purchasing homes later in life, how does that affect the generational wealth? Meaning, I'm a homeowner currently today, but I struggle to pay the mortgage. But what does that mean to the lineage of my family? That means if one of my children inherits my home, or one of them actually inherits one of my properties, they're going to have to pick up the mortgage. They're going to have to pick up that the interest rates. They're gonna have to pay up the taxes. Everything that I am currently struggling with today, my children now absorb that. So that's the reality in Black communities and families. Even with home ownership, it's not even safe for us to have that as a financial goal and means. So someone who purchases a home at 30 potentially has decades to build equity. You hear that? Decades to build equity. Meaning, what are we getting back out of the property if we don't have equity on that property? Equity is a lot. If you have equity, that means that's something that you could pull back out of your home to either purchase another home or use it for improvements to your home. But it's a surplus of cash flow that you have within your right for your property to use as you want, or as you can, even towards the mortgage if need be. But that is kind of like a different type of loan to speak to. I'm gonna have a segment on that because I don't think a lot of people know that as well. But think about someone who doesn't purchase until they're 50 has considerably less time. So you won't build that equity by the time you pass your property on to your children or any parties that are inheriting your items. So I'm conscious of that. I'm well aware. I purchased my home when I was roughly about in my 40s. So I'm like in midway of that. So I look at my home equity line all the time and when I'm paying my mortgage and I'm like, you know what? I just need to start paying on the interest rate alone. The interest rate will help you get to that equity build up a little bit faster, which I'm going to have a segment on that as well. Because sometimes like when you talk about financial wealth, there's little shortcuts that no one teaches us. And as you find that information out, you're starting to delve into, oh, this is the information that I needed to know years ago. Not right now at the moment, but years ago, this information should have been, available to me at my fingertips. And unfortunately it wasn't. So, yeah, let's delve further into this. Black businesses and entrepreneurship. There's also tremendous opportunity within the Black community for Black businesses and creating businesses and brands and podcasts and consulting firms, construction companies, restaurants, technology companies, as well as professional services. But entrepreneurship isn't easy either. So let's go into business ownerships and what we have to deal with as business owners. Business owners are dealing with higher operating costs. Think about that. Labor costs, commercial rents, access to capital, credit requirements, competition, taxes, and insurance. The key question that we really should ask ourselves for business owners are we supporting Black businesses enough, or do we only talk about supporting them when it's convenient? And I want to state that because I get on here and I have a podcast, of course, but I'm getting zero value from this simply because I'm teaching and educating our people. I don't have the subscribers. I don't have any of the top views, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it because I'm building a brand. I feel that you have to start small and then work your way up to the top. I've done it in my career, so why not do it in other elements of my life? And if entertainment and this is it, then this is what I have to do. But hopefully in time, someone will see it and be like, okay, I love this podcast. I love to speak to. I love the information and the education that I'm getting from this. And then it's able to do and soar and take off. But everyone immediately believes because you have a podcast, oh, you have to be getting profit. You have to be getting money. It's based on a lot of different elements that people are unaware of. The subscribership, the viewership, and a lot of the things that don't come into play. Even the topic. If I am talking about a topic and it may not be to their liking, they'll keep scrolling and it won't get the viewership that I need in order to say, hey, this is something that's valuable and I should be getting paid for it. So even the things that you invest in businesses, they start small and then they work their way to be much bigger over time. And how much time is that? Sometimes weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years. And unfortunately, that's the case and that's common. So do we do it based on convenience? I advertise my podcast. I advertise a lot of Black businesses, but I always feel that it's a convenience because we want to profit off of something. We want to gain something from something, right? And I would say, like, I go into a Black establishment, I immediately think because it's a Black establishment, it should have a lower cost of rate, not taking in the in mindset of the money it takes to actually purchase it, to cook food, prepare the item, to make it, the materials used, all of that stuff takes a effect on actual cost. And not only the cost of the material and, I want to say inventory, that's really what it is. It's also a labor cost because if you're not just working by yourself and you have employees, you have to pay these people. You have to pay them employees and you have to make sure that they have insurance. You have to make sure you have liability insurance. You have to make sure that you file your taxes. There's so much that comes into it. And as well as if you're renting a commercial space, that's an additional cost that it has as well. So I take all those things into consideration. We're saying, we're supporting Black businesses, but are we doing it out of convenience? Because if we're not getting a discount or we don't see any benefit to it for us, we immediately be like, okay, dismissive of it. But if we go into any of the establishment where it's commercial, meaning those McDonald's and Burger Kings and Wendy's and all those other Black businesses like clothing, like Walmart and other those conglomerates, we support those businesses and they're not giving us a discount and they're not taking prices off for us. They're giving us at cost. But we turn a blind eye and we're like, see, this is why we don't support Black businesses because they're not giving us discounts. We feel that we deserve this. I don't know what this whole we feel we're owed something when we're buying it from our own people. I think because we are buying it for our own people, it should be expected to pay higher rates. I feel that it should be appreciated and valued for at what it's worth, as well as like the fact that we're supporting our own community. It's a sad statement that's out there that the Jewish dollar will basically live in the community, their own community for a very long time, and it won't see outside of the Jewish community for years. And then the Black dollar immediately onto the next community. We do not hold it within. It's not something that we're doing, and we need to practice that. We need to practice it more. So I want to get out of the mindset myself alone, just with stop doing it out of convenience and just do it enough that we can actually profit and soar and the next business can take off, because that's what's lacking right now today. And then we also want to say we should be talking about building Black businesses that we can scale and hire employees, acquire properties, and obtain contracts and create generational wealth. I know in the past when I've seen things like that happen, when generational wealth was built, and I'm talking about, yes, I'm going to say it, the Central Park that stands today was not originally Central Park. And if you know, you know. Go do your research. I'm gonna do a segment on that too. Trust me, every time I come across a topic, then I'm like, maybe people don't know about Siennica Village. Maybe people don't know about the things that have happened when we built the Black Wall Street. People don't know a lot of the facts, but you have to teach on to. And history repeats itself. But if we build these things in our community and start to show growth, and I hate when people say, oh, well, if you want to have it, then go build it. We did. We have in the past. And you have repeatedly showed us that if we build something, then we call it ours, it's frowned upon. And not only is it frowned upon, then it's attacked and then it's torn apart. And then, we're raided and taken apart and pulled from our families and created these laws that, don't allow us to have safe spaces and build our Black community the way that we need to build them. And that's just the reality of it. That's the reality of what we see. And I hate that narrative of, oh, they want it, but they won't go get it. Yes, we have got it in the past. Our ancestors showed us what happened when you obtained those things in the past. They dismiss it and they burn it down and they take it over. And that's exactly what's happened. That's why Central Park exists. And if you don't know, go do your research and find out, because it needs to be known. And then when it comes to employment and professional Black middle class, another important conversation is that employment. Black professionals may be doing everything society tells them to do, but we need to get educated, get degrees, get a good job, and then work hard. That's the narrative that's pushed out there. They always tell us to get educated, get degrees, and then get jobs, not get educated, get degrees, and start a business. And I think we need to change that narrative. We really need to change that narrative. We can own our own businesses. We don't have to rely on the man on outside of our just work in our actual. We don't have to work, just rely on our work and salaries only. We can actually build and create our own. There's nothing wrong with having a job so we can have a salary as our base and start, but then growing from that and knowing how to grow from that is equally important. But that doesn't automatically translate into wealth. And we do know that. We need to distinguish between earning a good income and building financial independence, because building financial independence seems to be what's missed. Take someone making $120,000 a year can still be financially vulnerable if their expenses, debt, and lifestyle consume most of their income. I say it all the time. I know I live outside my means. I go get my hair braided. I go get my nails done every month. I mean, there's things that I definitely can shave off on my financial responsibilities that I just feel like it's more like a want instead of a need. And that's what we need to get away from. Do we really need this? Do we really need to have these things in place? That leads to a powerful question of, are we teaching our children how to make money or how to keep it, invest it, and multiply it? I know right now I am not. I had a conversation with my son just recently where he asked me, oh, well, how do you do that? Like, if you take your salary and you do these investments and everything. And I had to tell him, I said, I put my investments in my company's 401k. I put my money and I stock it to this stock because that's what's selected by my company. But I don't know the who, what, where's, and why's of what's going on with my dollar and how it's expanding and how it's being successful. I go and check the bank account. I see that it grew by $1, a percentage. And then I'm like, okay, I'm satisfied with the fact that I just see it continuously grow. I need to get a better understanding of how it's being invested, where it's being invested, and how to multiply that. I could be doing so much better and just don't know how to get to that. I would love to have someone on the segment that could teach on to others about that and getting their Black wealth and how to invest in that. I would love any takers. So if you are that person, please put it in the comments. I'd love to have you on the show and you could expand your knowledge onto my audience, because we need to know. We need help. We definitely need help. And then we also have to look at the pressures of supporting a family. You have to make the decisions. And when you make those decisions, what is that outcome? What does that fall into? So this subject basically deserves attention. Many people aren't financially responsible only for themselves, and they may be asking for help from parents, children, grandchildren, siblings, and extended family that can create tremendous financial pressure. Helping family is admirable, but it can also make it difficult for someone to build their own emergency fund, savings, purchase a home, or investment in retirement. That's really the truth about that. But one of the questions that we really need to ask is, where do we draw the line between helping our families survive and sacrificing our own financial future? And a perfect example is that my children are all adults, all adults. So at any point, I should be looking for them to move from my household and save up their money and basically be free on their own. And I wouldn't have the financial responsibility of the house. I could then downsize to something much smaller. And then I could focus on saving enough for me for the retirement in the next 10 years, hopefully less than that. But I know the reality on that is very unlikely. Kids are not moving out right away. Actually, I have a girlfriend, her son is 34, and no shade to her, him, because they made that decision. They made the decision that instead of him moving out and paying another person $2,000, that he would do $2,000 into the household, and then that investment in property would be signed over to him upon anything happening to my girlfriend. And I think that's a very smart business decision to say, instead of you taking your money and moving it into another property or another person's pocket, then hey, provide it to me. This is also your house. That means she can't tell him anything. She can't give him any advice on anything. And when it comes to the house, even to the point of chastising, I said it to her one day. I was like, you can't tell him to go wash the dishes. And she's like, oh, I'm going to tell him to go wash the dishes, which was quite comical to me because, he's like, I'm paying my money. Don't tell me how to live. And I'm like, ugh. So you have to have some type of maturity and level of agreement before you make that decision because, yeah, the money always helps. Yes, at the end of the day, the property will be yours. But the same way the property could be yours, all of the pros that come with it also comes the cons. Meaning that if that dishwasher breaks, someone has to replace it. If that bill is due, then it needs to be a look at the finances and see if you need to owe more money or less money. Whatever the case may be, whatever the circumstances, you have to be able to draw a line with your family when it comes to survival or sacrificing your own financial free future. And I do know that as a reality is something that I'm facing right now today, and I'm working on it. And every time I talk to you guys, I want to add a personal element to it. So please don't take on just my story. Make sure that you're doing something or you're hearing something. You now know the actions you have to take when you ask yourself that question and have that conversation with your family. So the next thing I want to talk about is financial literacy, which financial literacy, this is kind of an important conversation, but it isn't simply knowing how to balance a checkbook or, how you handle your finances. You have to understand credit, debt, interest, taxes, real estate, retirement, business, and wealth transfer. So all of that collectively together is huge, huge. I could hold a segment alone just based on those topics that I just referenced. Imagine if financial education was treated as serious as traditional education, which it behooves me, it baffles me that we don't talk about finances when it's like in high school, elementary, we just taught math. And I think we need to start putting a financial class in there to show people how to check, balance everything. Like, if you're getting blank dollars, then how do you deduct that when your debt is this dollar? How much are you paying off and what's the interest of that? All of it is important information, but we don't teach those things. So I always try to teach my kids when I get paid, let's look at my finances. Let's see if I pay the mortgage and the mortgage is this and the number is this, then how do we deduct this? And this is what I'm left with. Is that enough for me to feed everyone, transport to and from work, and then still have a livelihood and a life afterwards? Because I just don't want to be able to live to pay bills and just eat. I want money to actually enjoy life, and that's the hard part right there. So instead of teaching our children how to get a job, we need to be teaching them how credit works. We need to be teaching them how mortgage works. We need to be teaching them how to read a contract, as well as addendum and in clauses and in indemnifications. Lord Jesus, I couldn't get the word indemnifications out. As well as how taxes work and how to invest their money, how businesses make money, how to negotiate salaries, how to protect assets, and then how to establish generational wealth. Because you don't want this just to be a one pony show. You want it to be able to be multiplied throughout the whole generations of your family and tree line. I have it right now in my insurance where, yes, a percentage is left to each child, but as that interest rate grows, certain children cannot get money until this age. My grandson can't get money to this age, and it's sitting into actual trust where it will be able to collect interest on it. And then that way it doubles the number by the time it's able to be released that he's that age. So I just want to give you that as a tidbit as well. Investing and building that generational wealth is equally important. Spending versus investing. Oh my gosh, this is a big one for me. Put those damn Jordans back. I want to say that. Put those Jordans back. It's crazy because we will buy and not think about as soon as we walk out the store how things are depreciated in value. Those Jordans, I know you're gonna say collectibles and they increase rate and blah blah. But if you lose the box, or if you wear them, or the wear and tear of them, the years of wear or tear, like all of that stuff starts to deplete in cost. Same thing happens with a car. Same thing happens with homes. You have to constantly upgrade or maintain or show improvement to anything in order for it to appreciate in value. So spending versus investing is very huge in the Black community. The Black consumer represents significant purchasing power in the United States, but purchasing power isn't the same as wealth building power. And I think that's where we seem to lose a large percentage of our knowledge. The question becomes, how much of an economic power are we using to consume, and how much are we using to create? Buying a product provides temporary economic activity. Temporary. Owning a company that produces the product can create long-term wealth. Which one would you like to be on receiving end? Because you guys keep investing in things that these purchases, I'll take those Jordans. Michael Jordan's already rich. He already has, wealth. He already has built his wealth. But then what happens if you go and you create your own sneaker brand, or you start customizing sneakers or doing something off to that effect? You're now built and tapped into long-term wealth, which is so important. My son customizes sneakers. So I just want to say that, like, it's a big difference when you look at the two and you say, either I want to be a purchaser or I want to be someone that owns something. And owning something, much more important versus being a person purchasing something. That doesn't mean people shouldn't enjoy your money. Doesn't mean that. Don't take me so serious. You're like, okay, I can't own any good pair of sneakers. No, there's other brands that does provide you money within your means, or be able to balance, and you're still able to build your wealth in addition to purchasing things. So that doesn't mean people shouldn't enjoy their money and purchase items. It means that we should ask whether we are balancing consumption with ownership. Fine. Let's talk about that. I stated my son customized sneakers. He could take $100, $120 pair of Nikes, $120 pair of Nikes, and then by the time he custom builds it, rhinestone paint, whatever this case may be, whatever customization, basketball, football team added to it, this now has increased wealth. So if he takes those same $120 sneakers, customize them, materials and everything, he pays $50, $60 for them, and then he turns over that sneakers and sells it for $300 to $400. Guess what he's just done? He's just increased his value on his profit. That's what we're talking about when we say grow to build wealth. Doing it one time, that's great. Apply it. That's temporary. You were able to build something, grow something, establish. But if you do that long term, that money starts to add up and accumulate. And especially if you sit in a bank where it's able to build and collect interest under a business accounts does collect interest. Then you're able to see your business take off, your business that you created take off and grow. So that's the difference between being a consumer versus an owner. You see how you could take $100 item and turn it into $400-$500 item, and then you say, oh, that $300 profit, now I'm able to get back. If not, multiply it tenfold. So that's it. That's really important. Know if you're the spender or your investor. Being the investor is more applauded, and spending, and you're gonna spend, but you probably prefer to invest. Trust me. I'm like, stop buying those damn Jordans. And then when it comes to generational wealth conversations, what are we leaving behind? And I thought about that maybe 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I woke up and I had chest pain, and it was just anxiety. It turned out to be nothing but anxiety, which was understandable. I'm in a stressful job. I do my day-to-day work. I also have my home life to think about and all the people that affects it. But what about, what am I leaving behind if something does happen to me? And it's not just about money. It's not. It's also about houses, businesses, investment accounts, land, education, financial knowledge, life insurance, meaning in life insurance as well as insurance, intellectual property, retirement accounts, professional networks. Yeah, I meet so many people in my walks of life and what I do. Do my children know those people? Are my kids going to be let in the same rooms that I was welcomed into and have years of being in? And now my kid come in and they're going to be as standoffish to them, and they have to start their way from scratch with whatever venture they're into, and then finding how to navigate through those worlds and building new, contacts and professional, interests and networks. I hope not. I hope not. I hope my name reaches far enough and long enough that people will hear, oh, Ty. And they're like, oh, I know Ty. Like, oh, yeah. And we welcome him with open arms. Welcome my girls with open arms. And then show them the way. Because, I may not have been able to teach one everything that I know in my head, but hopefully they learned enough where they're like, okay, I'm able to gather this. I'm able to do something with it, and then so from there. So that's a really important thing. Generational wealth isn't necessarily about leaving your children with millions of dollars. It's also about making sure that your children don't have to start from zero. And that's what I'm hoping that my children are not able to do, start from zero and they have to work their way up. That process, think about it. I'm like now 50 years old. So looking at my years of experience in my life, I've been in my industry for 25 of those 50 years. I'm hoping my children are able to just walk in and go into those spaces and say, I know, and this is what she taught me. Even though it may be a midway mark, hopefully they can grow from there. So yeah, it's equally important not to have your children start from zero. And I'm not just talking financial. We just want them to be able to take off and sort from whatever knowledge that we left behind, as well as our contacts and financial education and information. So yeah, all of it is just as important. And then what can we actually do? What can we do to make things better? Let's start talking about some of these things. It's so taboo for us to talk about money in our community. I remember me being a little girl, never knowing that my mom and dad, what they made, what they worked, how they worked, where they worked. Like some things is just like not a discussion, not up for discussion. But now we need to start talking about solutions and what we need to do to build those things. Build emergency savings. Talk to your children about emergency savings. So that way that not you're just practicing it, but they're practicing too. Reduce high interest debt. Get rid of it. Try to pay off as much as possible. Try to pay off as much as possible. Improve credit. Improve your credit line and invest consistently. You want to invest consistently. I don't know why I was going to say continuously, but same thing. Invest consistently. And then learn about retirement accounts. I need to delve further into retirement accounts because I know I have my 401k, but I know I could be doing something so much more with it. Especially for the balance that I have out there on that account. So I'm like, I need to start investing and showing, what that really means and teaching on to my kids what retirement fund was. I just had a conversation with my son about 401k and how it's so much better than just having a regular bank account and savings because he said, what's the difference? And I was like, what? Like, yeah. So teach your kids about that. Teach your kids about retirement funds and accounts. Consider home ownership when financially appropriate because you don't want to be just, house poor. You don't want to just be sitting in a home and just like, we have these four walls, that's all we got. You want to be able to build upon that as well. Develop multiple income streams. I always say start young. If I was young, I would be having 2 to 3 jobs and working my way up. And I would say not even in the same industry, expound on that, because when one industry fails you, then you'll have another industry to pick up from. Right now, I work in retail as well as construction management. So having both of them, when I know my construction management is dead during the winter time a little bit, I'm able to step into my retail space and then say, hey, I know that this is available opportunity. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going to work. So yeah, like have both as an option. Why not? Especially if you're young enough. Focus on your bag instead of focus on other things that may be toxic or, things that you're distractions. Focus on your wealth. Really focus on that financial literacy. And then also learn financial literacy. What these words mean. I gave you guys words earlier. That was keywords. I'm hoping that you learn what those words are before my segment. So credit, debt, interest, taxes, real estate, retirement, business, and then wealth transfer. So all of that, get the definition of each and what it means and how to look at it. So outside of learning those financial literacy, when it comes to family, discuss money openly. Like have that open dialogue. I remember being a kid and I was told stay in a kid's place. We didn't talk about finances. We didn't know what my mom and dad made. It was none of our business. We never talked about bills. We never even heard them talk about bills. We just know we lived in a house and that was it. Like, the who, what, where, when's, or why's was never our prerogative. So we just minded it. And I remember stay in a child's place. That statement was made to us so much, but we need to start discussing money openly because, if I pass, if something happens to me, knock on wood, hope and pray it doesn't. But if it does, then I want my kids to know, you call this, you do this, you do this, you do this. It shouldn't be like, oh, go figure it out. It should be a process where they know what all of your accounts are. They should know all your passwords to those accounts. They should know exactly who to contact, the lawyer who to call for your will and investment and the properties and everything, and how to get to them at their fingertips with ease. Everything shouldn't be a top secret like it was back then. Teach children about their credit and investing. Create wills and estate plans, which I have. Make sure you discuss home ownership and business ownership and the difference between the two. Stop creating financial conversations as taboo. That was such a big thing for us when we were younger, but now we're out of that. Now we're talking about things so much more openly. Children are aware of finances. And my son, he'll come and ask me, my daughters as well, why does this exist? What are we supposed to do when this happened? What is this, letter? My daughter got a letter from my 401k company saying she was added to a plan and her social security number was used. And immediately she came in, why'd you use my social security number? And I kind of chuckled because I was like, did you think I put something in your bill and your name or something like that? When have I ever did that? I'm 50. You're now standing in front of me, 20 plus years old. I would never, but it says right there 401k plan. Do you know what a 401k plan is? And she's like, no, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, it's a savings account. It basically says if something happens to me, then you'll be awarded this percentage of money. The way she grabbed that piece of paper and ran out my room, she just wanted to make sure it was something that she profited from and nothing that I did. So like maliciously, like, oh, I'm gonna put this in her name and blah blah. I don't know why she thought that, but it was comical. I do know why, because she has had friends that told her stories like that, where they're going to college now and they're like, oh, you wouldn't believe I found these things were in my name and in my credit. And I'm like, where did this stuff come from? And she found out it was her mom years ago. But, we want to get away from those storylines because that stuff is that taboo stuff. We talk about financial things and conversations. That's the stuff that was taboo. That's the stuff that's negative. We don't want to keep creating that storyline if that's not the case, especially in our community, because that's not the storyline for everybody. But I do understand where she asked and posed that question. And then from a community perspective, support businesses that provide equal product services. And meaning, yes, they're not trying to get a buck. They're not spending $40 on like one meal. But yes, $20 on a meal, the same $20 that you would spend at McDonald's, Wendy's, etc., you could spend at a black-owned business. It makes sense. As well as their merchandise, which this is a black-owned business. This shirt that I had, it says love is not action. Love is an action word. Sorry, love is an action word. That's what my shirt states. I'll give you guys just a glance of that. Love is an action word, but that's a black-owned business right there. I purchased this shirt. It was maybe $15 to $16. Same $15, $16 I would have walked in a Rainbow, Macy's, Express somewhere and purchased a shirt that had the same words on it and not even blinked an eye. I purchased the shirt because why not support a black business? Create mentorship networks. Yes, mentorship networks. I remember asking a girlfriend of mine, did she want me to take her daughter on a job site because she was interested in real estate, but didn't know where in real estate she wanted to do. She didn't know if she wanted to do investment. She didn't know if she wanted to do loan. She had mortgage loan. She didn't know if she wanted to do like, property management. She had real estate knowledge, but she didn't know what industry, like what way to delve into real estate. So when I told her about construction and I told her about construction management, and she goes, oh, so you're in and out of properties? Absolutely. You're in there. Are you building stuff yourself? Absolutely not. I'm not building anything. I'm going in and I'm doing the checklist with my super and I'm making sure the materials there on site and making sure that the budget is on budget. I'm talking to the client and talking about their expectations and deliverables. I'm talking about all those things and coordinating inspections, conducting inspections with them. Oh, it's so much nuance behind it, but you want to teach on to others. And that really is helpful when you create that mentorship network. You want to encourage entrepreneurship because, hey, why not do it just for the man? Also do it for yourself. Build your brand. Absolutely build your own brand. And then develop financial educational programs because that's equally important. I always say that. I'm like, why do we never talk about financial education programs? When I see them, I forward them on to my members and people that I feel need to know. And then last but not least, you want to build professional networks. You want to always make sure that, your name is known, but you also want to make sure that your children's name are known. I never forget, I was in an office and I was working and I told someone, I'm like, I have three daughters. And one of them, I said it, she has my personality. She never stays quiet about anything. She's going to be the one that speaks up. And yes, it was the same one about the retirement plan, if you're wondering. But she came in immediately and she's like, well, what is this that you do? And I'm like, construction management, let's go. And, I've taken my kids on my job sites. I've taken them to my businesses and companies and they shook hands with the bosses. I want them to know just as much as I had this opportunity and I made it in these offices and space that it's a safe space for me. And then I can also welcome you into it. And if you want to grow from this in this industry, which they typically don't, they don't like that whole like, oh, well, my mother and her work ethic and you're going to expect the same thing out of me. Black children in the community don't like that necessarily per se, but there's some kids that will be like, let me learn and let me get the opportunity to see what I could do with it on my own, which I applaud that. That's really huge. I wish my kids was that way. They're just not. They're like, they're going to want to do the same thing you do. And I'm not as thorough. I'm not as, analytical and I don't care that much. And I'm like, that's okay. That's okay. I'm okay with that. So, it is what it is, to each his own. But long term, the ultimate goal is we should move from how do I survive? And how do I become an owner? And eventually it should be the discussion of how do I create something my family can inherit? And those are all of the talking points right there. So if the economy changed tomorrow and your paycheck stopped, how long could you as a household survive? And what would you own that could continue producing income? So that's a very important thing that we need to make sure that we're asking ourselves on a daily basis and how to build that revenue stream and how Revenue is income. So how to build that revenue stream and what we do to produce that income and how it will continuously soar. Because we know a lot of industries die, a lot of the businesses die, but you want to make sure that if you're not able to be in that industry, you're able to pivot and grow and do something somewhere else. That's really important because the reality of the real economic conversation isn't simply about how much money we're making, but it's whether we're converting our income into ownership, security, and generational wealth. And that is pretty much the podcast. That's a lot of my talking points right there. I took like about 2 weeks to get this segment together because I wanted to delve into the home. I wanted to delve into the family. I wanted to talk about investments, the retirement, so many different things that I wrote down. And then as I'm writing it down, I'm like, oh, and I forgot to tag this, and I forgot to add that, and I forgot to. So there's a lot of components that I was like, home ownership. I just became a homeowner, 10 years ago. So I wanted to delve into that. I told my son actually the other day, he's 27 years old. You should be starting to look for a property. You should start looking for some type of things to put your interest in. If he came back to me and said, you know what? I don't want to purchase my own property. I want to get an investment property. I would applaud that. But I would also applaud if he came to me and said, I want to live here in this house and I'll take over a portion of this payment and this percentage of our living. So that way we both can manage. And then when something and if something happens to me, I'm gonna say it somewhere. I don't know what happened. So if something does happen to me realistically, like knock on wood again, I'm knocking wood. So if something does happen to me, he'll be able to take over and not be a strange thing for him to do is like pay a bill or know how to manage his livelihood. So all of that is equally important. But I thank you guys so much for joining and listening to this segment. Any comments, questions, feel free to drop it down in the comments, like, share, and subscribe. And I appreciate you and your viewership. Have a great one.